Beef liver. Beef liver was the most consumed cut of beef in America until the 1970s when the low-fat diet movement declared organ meats unhealthy, and supermarkets responded by reducing shelf space. The liver of a single cow contains more vitamin B12 than any other food source on Earth, more iron than spinach, more protein per gram than steak. Nutritionists who study nutrient density consistently rank beef liver as the most complete food available from a single source. A generation of Americans stopped eating the most nutritious cut of the animal because a diet trend told them to. The cut is still there. The trend is largely discredited. Bone marrow. Bone marrow was peasant food for most of Western history because it required cracking bones that butchers discarded after selling the meat. The marrow itself, a rich fatty substance that produces blood cells in living animals, roasts into a gelatinous butter-like consistency with a flavor more intense than any muscle cut. British chef Fergus Henderson put roasted bone marrow on the menu at St. John Restaurant in London in 1994, and food writers declared it a revelation. Within a decade, it had migrated from butcher scraps to upscale restaurant menus globally. Bone marrow now costs more per gram than the steaks served alongside it. Tripe. Tripe is the stomach lining of a cow and has been eaten across every culture that raises cattle for as long as cattle have been raised. It requires hours of cleaning, blanching, and slow cooking before it becomes edible. The result is a texture unlike any other meat, chewy and gelatinous simultaneously, that absorbs the flavor of whatever it is cooked with more completely than muscle meat ever does. Menudo in Mexico, tripe alla romana in Italy, and andouillette in France all use tripe as their central ingredient. Every culture that found it inconvenient to throw away a stomach discovered independently that it was worth keeping. Beef brains. Beef brains were a delicacy in French cuisine for centuries and appeared on American restaurant menus without controversy until 1986, when the British BSE crisis linked bovine brain consumption to variant Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease in humans. The FDA banned beef brains from cattle over 30 months old in 2004. The market collapsed overnight. Before the ban, scrambled eggs and brains was a standard breakfast dish in the American Midwest, particularly in Missouri and Arkansas. A prion disease in British cattle permanently ended a regional American breakfast tradition. The dish existed on American tables for generations and disappeared within a single food safety announcement. Beef tongue. Beef tongue is the largest muscle in a cow's head and one of the most flavorful cuts on the animal. It requires 3 to 4 hours of simmering before the outer membrane can be peeled away to reveal the tender meat inside. Jewish deli culture in New York made pickled beef tongue a standard menu item that survived for decades. Mexican barbacoa uses tongue slow-cooked with the head until it falls apart. Korean soups feature thinly sliced tongue as a premium ingredient. A cut that most Western supermarkets hide in the back corner of the meat case is considered a luxury ingredient across 3 separate culinary cultures. Foie gras. Foie gras is the fattened liver of a duck or goose produced by force-feeding the bird through a tube for the final weeks of its life. The process is called gavage. It has been practiced since ancient Egypt, where carvings showing forced feeding of geese date back over 4,000 years. France considers foie gras a protected cultural and gastronomical heritage. California banned it in 2012, reinstated it, banned it again, and reinstated it again. The legal history of foie gras in California involves more court cases than most criminal trials. A 4,000-year-old Egyptian technique is simultaneously a French national treasure and a California legal crisis.
Chicken gizzards. The gizzard is the muscular second stomach that birds use to grind food because they have no teeth. It works constantly, contracting hundreds of times gaily against small stones the bird swallows intentionally. The result is a muscle so dense it requires long, slow cooking to become tender. Fried chicken gizzards are a staple of Southern American cooking, sold at gas stations and soul food restaurants across the Deep South at prices that make them one of the best value proteins available. A muscle that exists because chickens cannot chew became one of the most beloved comfort foods in American Southern cuisine.
Blood sausage. Blood sausage exists in every culture that raises animals for meat. Britain has black pudding, Spain has morcilla, France has boudin noir, Germany has blutwurst, the Philippines has dinuguan. Every culture independently discovered that cooking blood with fat and grain inside a casing produced something edible, filling, and flavorful.
Blood is rich in iron and protein. The iron content is what gives blood sausage its distinctive metallic edge that first-time eaters either embrace immediately or do not. Black pudding became a contestant on the Great British Bake Off as a pastry filling in 2016, and the resulting controversy generated more viewer responses than any other episode that season.
Beef heart. The heart is a muscle that never stops working from birth to slaughter. It contains no fat marbling, no connective tissue to break down, and no flavor compounds from the stress hormones that affect other muscles during processing. The result is the cleanest tasting beef available from any cut. Peruvian anticuchos, beef heart skewers marinated in ají amarillo and cumin and grilled over charcoal, are considered Peru's national street food. Sold from carts across Lima since the colonial period, they predate most of Peru's other iconic dishes. The hardest working muscle in the animal became the defining street food of an entire country.
Pig ears. Pig ears are almost entirely cartilage with a thin layer of skin on each side and virtually no meat. They become edible through hours of simmering until the cartilage softens into a gelatinous texture that is unlike any other food experience. Filipino sisig, one of the Philippines' most popular dishes, uses chopped pig ears as a primary ingredient mixed with pork belly, chicken liver, and calamansi juice, served sizzling on a cast iron plate. The texture that makes pig ears challenging to Western palates, soft yet slightly resistant, is precisely the quality that Filipino cuisine prizes. A cut with no muscle became the centerpiece of a national dish.
Oxtail. Oxtail is the tail of a cow, now almost exclusively from beef cattle rather than actual oxen. It is composed of vertebrae surrounded by thick connective tissue and a small amount of meat that releases intense gelatin when cooked for hours. Oxtail stew appears in Jamaican cuisine, Korean cuisine, Italian cuisine, and across the African continent simultaneously, because every culture that raised cattle independently discovered that the tail, simmered long enough, produced a richer broth than any other cut. Oxtail prices were negligible 50 years ago because it was considered a throwaway cut. Demand from global diaspora communities and restaurant culture has made it one of the more expensive cuts at specialist butchers.
Rocky Mountain Oysters. Rocky Mountain oysters are bull testicles, served fried at rodeos, county fairs, and western bars across the American mountain states. The name is a deliberate misdirection. No seafood is involved. The dish is eaten at festivals dedicated specifically to it in Montana, Colorado, and Idaho, where testicle festivals, sometimes called Testy Festi, attract thousands of attendees annually. The texture after frying is similar to chicken, mild in flavor and significantly less confrontational than the description suggests to first-time eaters. A ranching byproduct from the castration of young bulls became a regional delicacy with its own festival circuit. The name exists because Rocky Mountain testicles was considered less marketable.
Pig trotters. Pig trotters are the feet, composed almost entirely of skin, cartilage, tendons, and bone with almost no actual meat. They contain more gelatin than any other cauda animal. Simmered for hours, they produce a collagen-rich broth that sets solid when cooled. Chinese braised pig trotters, German Eisbein, and the French fromage de tête all use trotters as their central ingredient. Fergus Henderson at St. John Restaurant in London serves pig trotters stuffed with chicken and pistachio as one of his signature dishes. A cut with essentially no meat became the foundation of some of the most technically demanding dishes in classical European cooking.